Welcome back. This is class 6, week 2, Empathy Dojo, module 1, Empathy Essentials. We're going to tie together everything that we learned in week 2. So today we are going to do, some of the students here have already learned this. It's the SCSC Kata. It's your first kata. Oh, let me set my timer here. I think this one will be short, but you never know with me. So what is a kata? In traditional time, this is a Japanese word, and in Japanese martial arts, this means prescripted techniques. So that could be that you're performing them solo all by yourself, or it could mean you're performing them with a partner, but they're prescripted techniques. Why do we want a kata? Well, it's the Empathy Dojo, so obviously it's on brand, but a kata is a way to make sure you're developing, like in the martial arts example, it develops the same muscle memories, right? So if you want your block to land in the same place all the time, or your punch to come out with the proper body mechanics every time, you do your kata with those proper body mechanics. And then should you need to defend yourself or do this in competition or something like that, then you've already got that encoded on a somatic muscle memory level. Way cool. So we're going to do that for our empathy skills. Yes. So this is the SCSC Kata. SCSC stands for self-care through self-compassion. Self-care through self-compassion. And we'll have all sorts of ways as we go through this course of how to use this. Today, let's just give it to you, and you can start playing with it as a daily meditation or as needed. So it starts out, I'll talk you through it, and then let's see, should we do it while I talk you through it, or should I introduce it first? I'll introduce it just in words, and then we'll do it together. So it starts out with the presencing, the resourcing that we did before. So we're going to do this hand on heart mudra. Some people also like a different mudra. You can do that, but the hand on heart works really well with this kata. Then we're going to go through our observations, emotions, and values with a series of little mudras. So we're going to touch the head, and we're going to ask ourselves, what am I telling myself? And what am I observing? What am I telling myself? What am I observing? So this is kind of like if you're in a highly emotionally charged state, you might ask, what am I telling myself? And you look for the mental projections where you might be catastrophizing, where you might be relating to the past, where you might be getting triggered. And sometimes you're telling yourself things that are true, but we just want to witness, what am I telling myself versus what am I observing? Okay, I just got a text that said, we need to talk. That's one of the ones that'll throw me off. Okay. And then when I do this, thank goodness I have this tool personally. I'm really happy about these tools. I can actually decrease some of the anxiety that might produce. We need to talk. And then, okay, well, what part of this anxiety is because I'm telling myself something? Oh, I'm telling myself that this means bad news. I'm telling myself that bad news means this. And there's a whole chain of events that are just like me trying to see the future, right? My Lama says you can only suffer in dreaming. You can't suffer while you're awake. You can have pain while you're awake, but you can't suffer, right? So the suffering of these mental projections. So what am I observing? I observed I got this text. What am I telling myself? I'm telling myself this whole chain of events. Okay, cool. And you just give yourself, so you've generated this resource, you just give yourself that compassion for having those stories, and then you're getting in touch with those observations. Then you come back to the heart and you ask, what am I feeling? And we want to go into the emotion. So in that example, it would have been, okay, I got this text message and I'm feeling scared. So we're actually reeling ourselves back from the future tripping, the projections and all this stuff. What am I actually feeling? The living feeling of the moment. I'm feeling scared. Okay, cool. And then you're going to put your hand on your tummy. Doesn't matter where. You can't see my hand in this camera frame, but you're going to put your hand on your tummy and you're going to ask, what am I needing? Or what values am I expressing here? And so in that case, like I need clear communication. I need a sense of safety and comfort. I need, let's see, I need people to stop texting me. No, wait, that's not a universal human need, but it's about that sense of safety, comfort, and clarity. So I need that. And you're just giving yourself empathy. You're training yourself that, like that wise friend, to give yourself just to be present. Okay, great, you needed that. And you're as if you're like able, like you would to a friend, you're giving yourself that compassion. And don't discount this. We're going to try it together right now. But it's amazing how settled this can actually help the nervous system to become, even though you're not changing the situation, but instead of going off into dreamland and projection land and doing what many of us have been trained to do, which is avoid our feelings, avoid our actual needs, we come in touch with them. We give them presence, empathy first, and presence heals, and the presence actually does start to integrate those. So we still may be off, but we're a whole person who is a little bit off right now. So let's try it. Let's go hands on heart. Take a couple breaths. Just notice how you feel. And let's do our extended exhale. So when you're ready, just exhaling twice as long as your inhale. I like to use an 8 count personally, and then a 4 count on my inhale. You might feel already that just settles the mind down. It hacks your vagus nerve. You might also want to invoke the inner nature image, or that feeling that our hands are like sending a blessing into you. All of the above. You could invoke the wise friend, whatever gets you that sense of presence. And then just notice what's up for you. You can ask within, if you're doing this meditation fresh, this kata, you can ask within, like, hey, is there anything I'm feeling kind of challenged about or need some empathy about? And when you ask, just let your psyche just bubble up to the surface, anything that might be in there. So, hey, do I need empathy about anything right now? You just let the situation bubble up. If not, you could just ask, well, how am I feeling, or what am I dealing with? So come up with something to practice on. Could be, it doesn't have to be challenging. It could be positive, just to get these practice hours in. And then we're going to take this hand to the forehead and we just ask, what am I telling myself? So if it was a happy thing, you might be like, oh, wow, I'm telling myself I'm about to get a raise, and then they're going to throw me a party. And then, okay, cool. Well, what am I observing? Oh, well, I observed the boss pat me on the back after the meeting. Okay, cool. So we're just getting present. We're getting present with what is. If it was stressful, something that's up, just look at what are the projections, what are the actual observations, and come back to that sense of resource or wise friend. Just give yourself some presence and some empathy for all those stories, how challenging that can be to spin out for the situation. Okay, then coming to the heart, we're going to tune into our feelings. Remember, the main ones are sad, mad, glad, scared, and confused. So, what am I feeling about this? Obviously, if it was a positive one, it might be glad. Or you might have a little more specific. You might say, oh, I'm feeling ecstatic. If it was a challenging one, oh gosh, I'm feeling angry or disgusted. So what am I feeling? But really make sure it's an emotion and not another story. We already asked ourselves, what are my stories? So what are the emotions that are present? And then once again, like your hands were beaming this compassionate light, or your wise friend was just giving you presence, just give some empathy to whatever it is that's alive in you. There's something just wholesome and grounding about just being with what is. And finally, that right hand goes down to your tummy. We're just going to ask, what am I needing, or what values am I expressing? And these are things like autonomy or connection, like survival or transcendence, like peace, like shelter, like food, like safety. What are the universal human needs or the values that are really like, what am I longing for? What am I longing for? And then once again, the kata doesn't fix it, but we're giving ourselves presence and empathy with that longing. We're learning to be with that longing that's arising. And letting your hands down. And the last one is, am I called to make any choices? Am I called to choose? So sometimes there isn't a choice to be made, except perhaps those ones open or close, quit or keep going. But at other times, you just let your mind in this attuned state, the mind may go, oh, yeah, we got to choose this. And instead of have to, see if we can get to a point of choosing. I'm choosing this to meet my values. But then let that go and just come back to resourcing. You can do the double breathing if you like. You could do the nature image, but just give yourself a little, just like let that all go as much as you can and just try to savor an enjoyable experience. And deepen your breath. Draw the mind up from any deep states it might have gone in. And you're ready to transition. So this is your first kata. We'll be going over all kinds of applications for it. But once you get this kata down, the process of doing good old-fashioned compassionate communication becomes second nature, because we're already training ourselves to distinguish stories from observations, to come from self-referential feelings, to come from what are the values that I'm expressing. And so when we need to share that with another, all of those tools are hardwired in. We've already hardwired those tools. They become your new habit. As well, maybe you got some benefit from this. I recommend using this when you feel triggered, when you feel overwhelmed, getting into a habit of giving yourself emergency empathy. So this is the self-care through self-compassion kata. We'll talk about more applications for it as we go, but hopefully you enjoyed that. Drop a comment, tell me what your experience was like, or if you have any questions. We'll see you next week.